Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our FY23 enrollment training. We will begin shortly. I do ask that you please put your name and the center you are representing in the questions or chat panel. Again, there's an option for you to send a message to us. And in that, I want you to just put your name and the site you are representing. Thank you so much again for joining us, and we will begin shortly. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We will begin shortly. Today is going to be a large group, so I just want to give everybody a chance to log on. While we're waiting, again, I do just ask that you put your name and the site you are representing in the chat questions panel. Please have the name close to your center. We have a lot of learners, a lot of leaders, a lot of names that are similar. I just want to make sure that the correct center gets the credit for attending. So thank you so much again for joining us, and we'll be beginning shortly. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our FY23 enrollment training. We're getting closer to the halfway mark. Today is going to be a large group, so I'm just giving it a couple more minutes to let everybody join in. Please do put your name and the site you are representing in our chat question panel. Again, I just ask that you put as close to your site name as possible. I was sharing we have a lot of learning and Tiny and educators. We just want to make sure you get credit for attending today's training. Thank you again so much for joining us. We will be beginning in less than a minute. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Yes. Thank you all again so much for joining us. It's now 1:05, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. As shared, thank you so much for joining us for our FY23 enrollment training here at PHLpreK. I am Jennifer Harris, the Enrollment and Referral Coordinator, and I oversee the referral line in all enrollments for PHLpreK. Today, you will also hear from Johanna Morales, the Information and Accountability Manager, and Sue Spencer, our Enrollment Specialist. You will also hear from Brittany Edie, our new Provider Engagement Coordinator from OCF, as well as Mike Dunn, the Director of Communications. So let's get into it. Questions. We ask that if you have any questions that you please submit it in the questions chat panel. Throughout the presentation, we will pause to respond to your questions. You may also receive a direct response. If we do not get to all questions during the presentation, we will list the questions and answers in the PHLpreK newsletter once all trainings have been completed. Because of the size of the audience, we do ask that participants refrain from asking verbal questions during the presentation. All participants will be muted, but we will get to your question for sure. Today's agenda. Today, we will review FY23 program priorities and enrollment targets, system user types and supports, FY22 end of the year activities, the PHLpreK enrollment process and policy. We will share about Gratefully Schools, and we will close out with a communication and marketing presentation. So let's first start with our icebreaker. In the chat panel, please share something that makes you happy. Okay. Food, that's a good one. Yes, I can see your comments, Maya. All right, anybody else want to share about what makes them happy? Spending time with my family in our backyard. Singing karaoke, that's a good one. Whether you can sing or not, it's a good time. I'm eating a really good sandwich. Oh, I just got done my lunch. It was a good sandwich as well. Thank you for sharing. Awesome, awesome. So I'd be going on vacation. Music, that's a good one as well. Vacation is good. And we started with this icebreaker because we always want to stay grounded in what makes us happy and make sure we have that moment. A lot of things can happen in the world, but to be able to pause and enjoy some good food, a nice vacation, some good music or karaoke is really, really good. Again, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to now turn it over to Brittany, who's going to share about our FY23 program priorities. Brittany?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. I am Brittany Edie. I am the PHLpreK Provider Engagement Coordinator, and welcome to all of you. I'm going to go through the program priorities that we have here at OCF, and they include increase center quality and provide instructional resources, offer health resources and conduct developmental screenings, support staff development, promote kindergarten registration and transition. I am looking forward to working with all of you, and I'm really, really excited to be on this side of things, and I can't wait to get the ball rolling. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the Office of Children and Families or to reach out to PHMC. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Now I will turn it over to Johanna, who will share about the FY23 enrollment targets.
Thanks, Jennifer. Can you confirm that you can hear me okay?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Brittany, as well for covering the enrollment priorities. Now I want to cover the fiscal year 23 enrollment targets. If you are a returning provider, one of the first steps that you will need to take is to discharge any of your currently enrolled children for fiscal year 22. You need to discharge your children in order to re-enroll for fiscal year 23. The deadline for that has passed, but you can still go in and add a future discharge date. The discharge date should reflect the date that you have outlined in your program calendar as your last day of programming, unless a child has left beforehand. Additionally, we have outlined our enrollment priorities. It's sequenced here in front of you. First, you should be entering returning children. Then we ask that you enter children aging into PHLpreK, and then any new children going into the facility. Additionally, we'll be monitoring enrollment for the year, starting at 50% enrollment, then 100% enrollment, and then that you have entered a growing wait list. We will be monitoring 50% enrollment on August 26th, 100% enrollment on September 30th, and that you have started a growing wait list in childcare on October 28th. Programs should set a internal target for themselves to enter and pre-enroll all eligible children in childcare first before entering new children. Programs are also responsible for enrolling children in accordance with the fiscal year 23 enrollment policy, which will be covered in today's training. Programs can also enroll children in childcare starting with a start date of September 1st, 2022. What to expect after the training? I'm sure you have a lot of questions about when you'll receive application documents, when you can start enrolling children for fiscal year 23. We're hoping to cover that in the coming slides. Enrollment training is required for all providers to ensure that you are understand the enrollment process, and we do ask that one representative from each location attends one of the sessions scheduled. This is the last session we have scheduled for these enrollment trainings. It is highly recommended that the person who is responsible for enrollment at the site location attends the training. Participants who participate in the full length of the enrollment training will be credited as attending. It's important to note that site locations will be able to enroll children in childcare once they've attended an enrollment training and once the notice of awards have been issued, signed, and returned. For new sites, you also must attend the agency site setup training facilitated by the childcare team. There's additional sessions scheduled for the agency site setup training, and that can be found in the Spark Knowledge Center under the events calendar. Once the 2 or 3 steps shared in the previous slide have been completed, the PHLpreK team will share their enrollment documents for fiscal year 23 and allocate the slots in childcare for the location that you can begin enrolling. Please note, requests for slot allocation in childcare will take 48 hours from the time the provider has completed all the steps, and we have confirmed those steps as completed. PHLpreK enrollment should not be confirmed with families until the site location has received their enrollment documents and they have satisfied the required steps to begin enrolling. Questions. As Jennifer shared before, we will try to get to every question that is sent through the question panel. We will select 2 to 3 questions to read out loud. If they're not answered directly in the question panel, our goal, as always, is to answer all questions. Any questions not answered live will be answered either through the chat panel, or we will add it to our frequently asked questions document that will be shared in the PHL Pre-K newsletter at the end of the last enrollment training that is held. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer, who will continue on with the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Johanna. And again, thank you, Brittany. So let's get into the training. System user types. For PHL Pre-K, we have 3 different data systems or user types. We have our 2.0 users. Our 2.0 users utilize Chowder 2.0 for platform for enrollment and data entry requirements. Our 1.0 users utilize Chowder 1.0. Our school district providers utilize COPA for enrollment and data entry requirements. However, our 1.0 and school district providers have additional enrollment steps. Today, we will review all enrollment steps for all user types. General PHL Pre-K questions. We encourage you to contact the PHL Pre-K team by email at phlprek@phnc.org or by calling us at 215-773-4432. Be sure to email or call if you have any questions about the PHL Pre-K enrollment process, approvals, or any other general questions you may have. Please note, we do have the intake and referral line that all families can call to be connected with centers, but you can also call that number. We have added some options where you can be connected with the PHL Pre-K team, but you can call 215-773-4432 to be directly connected with a team member. System technical issues. The Chowder team provides users with troubleshooting and technical assistance via telephone, email, and virtually during general business hours. To schedule, please email them at helpdesk@phnc.org. Assistance is available between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, excluding holidays. When you email, we do ask that you please include the following information: your full name and Chowder username, the email connected to your Chowder account, a phone number in case the team member needs to call you for any additional questions, the agency and site name you're calling from or emailing from, and a description of the problem. Please share as much detail as possible. Please note, you should only submit a help desk ticket if you are having technical issues. Any inquiries about approvals or the enrollment process should go to phlprek@phnc.org. So what if I need help with data entry? Great question. The Chowder team has created a resources library with tip sheets and videos for both our 1.0 and 2.0 users to help you with your data entry requirements outlined per the contract deliverables. You can go to chowder.org, select provider support, and then select PHL Pre-K user tips. When clicking on a resource, all links will open in a new window, so be sure to allow for pop-ups. For our 2.0 users, you can go right into the 2.0 platform. When you select support documents, tip sheets will be provided right there in Chowder 2.0. So let's talk about FY22 end of the year enrollment activities. To all of our providers that are returning, you want to make sure that you have withdrawn all children from the FY22 school year. All applicants that were entered in FY22 must be withdrawn as expired application. Discharging children. All children that were enrolled must be discharged as completed program if they attended until the last day of programming. Again, you cannot enroll children for the new school year if you have not discharged all of your currently enrolled or previously enrolled children from FY22. Last but not least, you just want to update the CCW office. You want to notify the appropriate office within 5 business days when a child receiving subsidy is discharged from PHL Pre-K programming to ensure appropriate allocation of funds. Contact the subsidy office with the following information: a list of children and the program end date. Discharge statuses. We have the following discharge statuses: never attended. This is for children who were provided a start date and did not attend within 7 business days of that date per PHL Pre-K policy. Withdrew from program. Children whose families willingly withdrew from programming. Completed program. Children who attended through the last day of PHL Pre-K programming. Switch funding source. Children who remain at your site but switch out of PHL pre-K funding and into another funding source. For example, Head Start. Transfer within agency. Children who move from one site within your agency to a different site within your agency, but remain recipients of PHL pre-K funding. Lastly is verification noncompliance. Children who did not meet the age requirement, the address requirement, or both for PHL pre-K and therefore did not qualify for PHL pre-K funding. If you encounter any problems while you are discharging and need assistance, please contact the help desk by emailing them at helpdesk@phmc.org. I'm going to pause right here to see if we have any questions. Yes, the question link is also the chat link. It's the same. I just use the words interchangeably. Will we receive these slides? Yes. A copy of this presentation will be provided to you. Another person asked, can I see you? I can see you typing in, but I cannot actually see you. The cameras are off for all participants. Johanna, was there a question I may have missed?
Nope, I think you have them all.
Okay. So sorry, one did just come in. What category do you discharge a child if they are attending but stopped attending without officially withdrawing? I'm going to follow up with you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if they attended one day of programming, it would have been withdrew from program.
Right. Were attended but stopped attending, yes, withdrew from program. Thank you for your questions. Again, continue to drop them if you have any, and we'll be sure to answer them or put them in the newsletter. So where in my contract can I reference the PHL pre-K enrollment process? You can find it in section 4, provider responsibilities in your provider contract. There are 5 steps a provider needs to take to pre-enroll and get approval for a child. Let's go through them now. This is a grid that shows all 5 steps, but no worries, we will go through each step for all user types. Step 1, step 2, step 3, 4, and 5. Here we go. Step 1, collect FY23 application and enrollment documents. All user types must meet with the family and complete the FY23 PHLpreK application. All families must also complete the acknowledgement form, which is the screening, assessment, data sharing, and family engagement form. Please note it shall also be tracked in childbearer. Providers must also ensure families complete the parent fee agreement and emergency contact form during the enrollment process. Please note the application will assist in screening families for subsidy care needs. All returning, new, and waitlisted children need a complete FY23 application. The application date should be on or after the date the FY23 application is released. I want to also share that the Ready for K has been added to the acknowledgement form, and in a few slides we'll share what that looks like now. For our 2.0 users, when in childbearer, under the Child's General tab, be sure to select Acknowledgement Form. Please also upload the completed form under the Document tab. For our school district and 1.0 providers, we will update and track this for you when you submit your enrollment documents. So now let's talk about some changes that have happened to our FY23 application. We have updated the gender. You will now see male, female, and non-binary. We have added the non-binary option. For our early intervention services question, we've just clarified what early intervention services can look like. For example, physical, speech, or other types of therapy services. Risk factors. We've added this component to find out some of the risk factors that the families we service may be, some services they may be receiving. For family information, we will now confirm the address for the caregivers and the relationship between the 2 caregivers listed on the application. We do ask that you put both caregivers into the childbearer database. For custody agreement, the custody agreement remains the same, we just changed the layout, but it will look different, and this is what it will look like on the FY23 application. Demographic information. We are working to ensure that we have the language for the child and caregivers. So in the first two lines, you'll see primary household language where the child resides and secondary household language where the child resides. So I want to make sure that we have that most accurate information. For our 2.0 users, providers must ensure the paper application is completed in its entirety prior to childware entry. For our 1.0 and school district providers, you must also ensure that the paper application is completed in its entirety before emailing to phlpreK@phnc.org. All application fields in childware 2.0 are mandatory, which is why we ask that the paper application is completed in its entirety, because that helps you to have a smooth enrollment process. For all user types, all providers must ensure the date of birth, legal name, and address match on the proof of age document, the proof of residency document, the FY23 application, emergency contact form, parent fee agreement, and the childcare profile. FY23 PHLpreK application and forms. All providers must retain enrollment documentation in the child's file and upload it to childcare. Those documents include the 2022-2023 PHLpreK application, completed in its entirety and signed by both you, the provider, and the family. Eligibility verification documents, that's the proof of age and residency. The acknowledgement form, the screening assessment, data sharing, and family engagement services. The emergency contact form, the Child Care Works enrollment confirmation form, which is only for children receiving subsidy or families interested in subsidy, and the parent fee agreement. The provider services specialist will verify eligibility, documentation, and compliance with the enrollment process during compliance monitoring checks. Please note, payments will be held for incomplete files. So let's review the applications and forms for this school year. The application and acknowledgement form has been translated into 9 different languages. As shared, the Ready 4K has been added to the acknowledgement form. And once that form is completed for our 2.0 users, please select the acknowledgement form checkbox on the child's profile in childcare. All right, so let's start with the PHLpreK application. Try to make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, so again, for all students that are enrolling for FY23, you want to make sure that they complete this application that says school year 2022-2023. The child must be 3 or 4 by September 1st, 2022, and must reside in Philadelphia to be eligible for PHLpreK. When we scroll down, you see the application questions. First, we start off with the child's information. Again, we want to make sure that all fields are completed. We have the child's first name, middle name, last name, the address, city and state, the zip, if the child currently lives in a shelter, transitional, or rapid rehousing, or temporarily lives in someone else's home, their date of birth, and the child's gender. The next section is asking a little bit more information about the child and what services they have previously received. So here you will check off yes or no for those questions. And then for our risk factors, you could say, you see, does the family participate in any of the following assistance programs? The next section is the family information with caregiver 1 and caregiver 2. You will complete this in its entirety. And for our 2.0 users, please make sure we put both caregivers in the Childware 2.0 database. We then move into the custody agreement. If there is a custody agreement with the family, we do ask that you complete this information. It will also be in 2.0. You'll be able to check and select and answer these fields. The next section is the demographic information. So we talked about that household language. We want to learn about the child's race and the child's ethnicity, and also the number of people that reside in the household. Next is the annual household income. The families can share or not share. If they do not share, please select prefer not to disclose. The next question is asking what type of industry does the family work in. Please select all that apply. Service information. This section is a big one. The service day and service year. You want to make sure that you select one. If it's for service day, either part day or full day. So for service year, you want to either select school year or full year, depending on the family's needs. If full day or full year is selected above, we want to then indicate what supplemental funding source is used to cover the hours outside of the 5.5 hours offered from PHL Pre-K. Please, please, please make sure you check off the boxes on each line. And again, if full day or full year is selected, that you select which supplemental funding source is being used. The next section of the application is our provider preference information. And this just lets us know what the families are looking for as we continue to grow with PHL Pre-K. How many hours a day does the child need? How much are they willing to pay beyond that for the services beyond their 5.5 hours? Are they seeking to enroll a sibling or into the infant and toddler program? Or are they seeking to enroll a sibling in the school age program? How will they get to the location? How far are they looking to travel? Will they prefer close to home or close to work? And then there are top 3 priorities when looking for a location. It then closes out asking, how did you hear about the PHL Pre-K program? That helps us know how the marketing is going. Last but not least is the eligibility attestation. You want to make sure you, as the provider, print your name here, your title, and that you date the application. That you also sign and you list the name of your location, okay? Then we have another piece where families can receive text messages. We want to ask, are they open to receiving them? You would have them initial here and then put their phone number here for which number can receive text messages. Last but not least, having their parents sign their application and date it. I do realize all times time is precious. So before the family leaves, make sure that you have this application completed in its entirety to help you have a smooth enrollment process. The next form is our acknowledgement form, the screening, assessment, data sharing, and family engagement services. This is for the 2022-2023 school year. Hope that's big enough for us all. So the purpose of this document is that it outlines the services that will be provided to your child during the 2022-2023 school year. And you want to review this with all families that are enrolling because this is a required document. There are some services that are offered and you will review what those services look like and how it can support the family. At the top, you will list the child's name, date of birth, their address, their parent guardian's name, and then a provider, your site's name. You will review developmental screenings with the families. This is where you complete the ages and stages questionnaire with the children. We want to share what that looks like and how it's a support to the families and it's beneficial for their child to receive that service. Next is the outcomes assessment. This is done 2 times a year at minimum. You want to share what that looks like, how that process goes, and how the information is in a database that's confidential and secure. Additional services. From that ages and stages questionnaire or that outcomes assessment, you may find that additional services are needed. We want to be able to share with their families information on Elwyn and how, again, this service can support them. Last but not least is the family engagement service. This is from Ready4K. And Ready4K has a program where they send weekly text messages with fun and easy learning activities that will help the parent and their child get ready for school, connect them with community resources, and remind them to make the most of life's teachable moments. As the next page, you will have them initial that you have reviewed all 4 of these items with them, and then have the parent sign and date. Lastly is our Child Care Works enrollment form. All right, so the first part of this form is for the provider to fill out. And this form is for our families that need or require or request subsidy to help with those hours beyond the 5.5 hours. So at the top, you want to put the program name, the program's address, the zip and email, and the contact person at your location with a phone number. You want to share the begin date for when PHL Pre-K starts at your location and the end date of when PHL Pre-K services will end. The next section is the section for the parent and child information. You want to put the parent's name, their phone number, the child's name, and date of birth. The parent's address as well. Then you would notate what date that child started your program and what hours they attend. You want to enter the daily 5.5 hour for the PHL pre-K schedule. Providers, you would then sign, add your title and position and the date, and then you'll have the parent sign to authorize their release of this information. Once this form is complete, providers must email the form to ELRC18providers@caringpeoplealliance.org. Those 3 forms are the updated forms for the FY23 school year. Let's talk a little bit more about the CCW enrollment form. You, as the provider, are responsible for referring families to their respective Child Care Works subsidy offices so that a determination can be made about subsidy eligibility. You want to also inform the Child Care Works subsidy office when children who are receiving subsidy funding enroll in PHL pre-K by using the form we just reviewed. You want to email that form again to ELRC18providers@caringpeoplealliance.org. You want to notify the Child Care Works subsidy office of the PHL pre-K program start date and end date as listed on that form as well. And you want to inform them of any changes in status, enrollment, discharge within 5 business days after it has occurred. You also want to archive the enrollment confirmation form in the child's file and enter the CCW subsidy status into ChildCare. This documentation will be audited by the PHL pre-K staff. Famous question, I know I heard you asking, when will I receive enrollment documents? So once you have attended the FY23 enrollment training, you've done that today, so that's one task taken care of. After you have received, signed, and returned your FY23 NOA for our returning sites, you're good to go. For our new sites, you want to make sure that you have attended the agency site setup training facilitated by Childware, as that gets you acclimated to the Childware database. Again, once the first 2 steps have been completed, we will then work to get you the enrollment documents so that enrollment can begin. I'm going to now turn it over to Johanna, who's going to share step 2, collecting age, residency documents, and verifying eligibility.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, step 2 for all providers is to collect the age and residency documents and verify eligibility. All provider user types are responsible for reviewing and collecting verification documents. What verification documents should be collected? It's the proof of age that the child's 3 or 4 by September 1st, 2022, proof of residency that they live in Philadelphia County, and make an eligibility determination. To do this, you are going to affirm that you have reviewed both documents and have a completed PHL pre-K application, and you're going to sign attesting to that within the PHL pre-K application. So Jennifer went through that application in the previous slide. There is a section in the application that you need and requires a signature attesting that you've done that activity. We do ask that you review age and residency and needs to be verified before entering the child in Childware or before submitting the application. Age eligibility. A child must be 3 or 4 years old on or before September 1st of the enrolling year and younger than the entry age for kindergarten. Proof of age sources of evidence are as follows: a birth certificate, Department of Health Services letter on DHS letterhead, valid U.S. passport, a visa or a green card, a Social Security documentation showing the date of birth, clinic, doctor's, or hospital record also showing the date of birth, daycare or nursery school records showing the date of birth, and any other government-issued documents listing the child's date of birth. If expired, a second form of documentation must be produced affirming that the child's age meets eligibility requirements. Let's test your knowledge. Eligibility date range. So a child's birthday that falls between September 2nd, 2017 and September 1st, 2019 is eligible for PHL pre-K for this fiscal year. So a 2-year-old who will be 3 on or by September 1st, 2022, or a 4-year-old not turning 5 on or by September 1st, 2022 is eligible for fiscal year 23. Who isn't eligible? A 4-year-old with the date of birth of 9/1/2017 or earlier, and a 2-year-old with a date of birth of 9/2/2020 or later. Residency eligibility. A child must reside in Philadelphia County. Proof of residency sources of evidence are as follows: state-issued ID or driver's license, a voter ID showing address, a current lease, rental agreement, or mortgage statement, current utility bill, Social Security documentation, recent employer pay stubs with proof of address, wage statements, child care works award letter received by the parent with an address, mail notice award letter from the County Assistance Office, DHS, with an address, and statement from a social service agency attesting to the client's residence. It is important to note that all documents must be dated within 12 months from the child's enrollment date in the program. So how to determine if a child's eligible? The upcoming slides will walk us through how to determine eligibility. So does a child address qualify them for participation in PHLpreK? This is fairly easy. Residency is defined as a child's address is within Philadelphia County. So if the child resides in Philadelphia County, they are eligible for PHLpreK. If the child resides outside of Philadelphia County, they are not eligible for PHLpreK. So age eligibility. Age is defined as a child will be 3 or 4 by September 1st of 2022, and not kindergarten eligible 5 on or before September 1st of 2022. We outlined priority with enrolling children for fiscal year 23, and we'll go over it again here. Priority 1 is returning children. Children who were enrolled in the PHLpreK program in the previous year and are age and still residency eligible are eligible for PHLpreK. Priority 2, children aging in. The child is already enrolled in the facility, but was not 3 by September 1st of last year and did not participate in Head Start or pre-K counts at the PHLpreK location that they are trying to enroll, then they would be eligible to age into the PHLpreK program. Priority 3, a new child. The child is new to the location and has never enrolled at the facility, and the child meets the age and address requirements, and they would be eligible for PHLpreK. Is a child age eligible for PHLpreK? So what would make them not eligible? If the child is not age eligible 3 or 4 by September 1st of the enrolling year, or is eligible for kindergarten 5 before September 1st, they do not qualify for PHLpreK. If the child is already enrolled at your facility, turned 3 after September 1st of last year, and participated in Head Start or pre-K counts at the PHLpreK location, they are not eligible for PHLpreK. If the child is 3 or 4 by September 1st, enrolled at your facility, and received pre-K services other than PHLpreK, so Head Start, pre-K counts, private pay, or subsidy, at the PHLpreK location, that would not make them eligible for PHLpreK. Lastly, how to determine if the child is eligible if placed on the wait list. So location has vacancies and the child is placed on the wait list. They're considered an applicant child. While on the PHLpreK wait list, the child receives PHLpreK services at the location. That would determine them not eligible to receive PHLpreK services. And if the child is not eligible, we do ask that you withdraw the child from childcare. If they are on your wait list and while on the wait list, they do not receive any preschool services, then that would make them eligible to enroll in PHLpreK. Okay, we're going to stop there for any questions.
Someone asked, how did we sign in for this training? Where you type in, please just put your name and the site you are representing. And I think that's the question about discharge we will answer in a couple of slides. One question is, if the parent only has the record of birth and not the birth certificate, can they use the birth record from the hospital? So I believe, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was gonna say, you can use like a physical as the date of birth and proof of date of birth. I feel like that was listed on the listing. We'll for sure share this listing with you so you could use that as well. But it's the record of birth.
Yeah, if it's a health record and it has a date of birth, we can potentially accept it. I would say anything that you have questions about, please reach out to the PHLpreK team. We can review and confirm whether or not it's an acceptable source of evidence.
And sorry, one of the questions said, can you please repeat the last part of the eligibility? Another question is, can you please repeat the last part of the eligibility? So if you're referring to the last slide, I could go back to that slide. So Sharon, the child is age and residency eligible for the program year and placed on the wait list. So if the location has no vacancies and the child is placed on a wait list, while on the PHLpreK wait list, the child receives preschool services at the location, they're not eligible. And that child should be withdrawn. And then the location has no vacancies and the child is placed on a wait list. While on the PHLpreK wait list, the child does not receive preschool services, they are considered eligible for services. And if you have more questions about that, we can definitely set up a time to chat. Okay. All right. So step 3, submit application for approval. All providers must complete step 3 of the enrollment process, which varies by provider type. For our 2.0 users, the provider enters the application information into Shower 2.0 for intermediary approval. For our 1.0 users, you enter the child's information into Shower 1.0, select dependent status, and then the provider will then submit the application and information to the intermediary to enter into Shower 2.0, including forms and classroom information. For our school district providers, you review and submit the application information, including forms and classroom information, to the intermediary to enter into Childware 2.0. The child's pre-enrollment date must reflect 48 hours after the application entry date for our 2.0 users. And our 1.0 and school district providers and users, the child's pre-enrollment date must reflect 48 hours after submission of application to the intermediary. So our 2.0 users, if you are putting in a family that's already in the system, you may receive this alert. It'll say, stop. It looks like you're creating a duplicate record for a child or family member that already has a profile within your agency. Search the children or caregiver list instead of creating a new record. If this is not a duplicate record, or if you need help, press the bug icon to create a help desk ticket, and someone will respond to you with support so that you can move forward or find the correct file for that family. Once I complete the application with the family, what's next? Well, each user type has specific steps they need to take. Follow along to see what steps you need to take to pre-enroll a child or add them to your wait list. For our 2.0 users, before submitting the application in Childware 2.0, you want to review the application for completion. All fields are required. You want to then enter the application information into Childware 2.0. The application date entered in Childware must be the date the application was completed, what date the application was signed. The pre-enrollment date must be a date 48 hours after entering the application into the system. You want to also ensure that you have signed the application to attest that the child has been verified before proceeding to enter the child in the database. After submission of the application, Once the intermediary receives a notification that you have pre-enrolled a child in the database, the team will review the data entered to ensure all components have been completed. If the enrollment was entered correctly and the program has a vacancy, then the intermediary will proceed with the approval. You will then receive an email confirmation of approval. The provider then has 24 hours to notify the caregiver that the child has been approved and when they can start. Please note, failure to follow this policy will delay the enrollment approval process. For our 1.0 users, before submitting application in Childware 1.0, you want to make sure that application is completed in its entirety, because all fields are required in the 2.0 database. You want to ensure that you have signed the application to attest that the child has been verified before proceeding to enter the child in the database. You want to enter the child info into 1.0 and select pending status. Once entered, and if the application is completed correctly, email it to PHLpreK@phmc.org. When sending the application, you want to ensure that the application submitted matches the demographic information in 1.0. In the email correspondence to PHLpreK, please include the child's full name, the pre-enrollment date, classroom name, enrollment status, whether applicant or pre-enrollment. If sending more than one application at a time, please ensure you are sending them in sequence of date stamp and outlining that date stamp within the email. Again, you can submit more than one application at a time on one email. Just make sure that you're putting them in the list in the order they should be added in the system. After submission of application in Childware 1.0, once the intermediary receives the application in the general inbox, it will be reviewed for completion to ensure that it matches the data entered into Childware 1.0 and to confirm a vacancy is available. The team will then enter the application data into Childware 2.0. We will then change the status in 1.0 to enrolled. You will then get an email confirming approval. You then have 24 hours to notify the caregiver that the child has been approved and when they can start. Failure to follow this policy will delay the approval process. For our school district providers, you too want to make sure that the application is completed in its entirety. You want to ensure that you have signed it and to attest and verify that the child is eligible, but also make sure the family has signed it as well for all user types. You, the school district provider, will then proceed with emailing the application and all documents to PHLpreK@phmc.org. When sending the application, please add in the email the child's full name, pre-enrollment date, the classroom, and enrollment status. Again, if sending more than one application at a time, please ensure you are sending them in sequence of date stamp and outlining that date stamp within the email. After application submission, once the team receives the application in the general inbox, we will review it for its completion in its entirety and confirm that you have a vacancy. We will then enter the application data into Childware 2.0. The team will then email you, the provider, with confirmation of approval, and you have 24 hours to notify the caregiver that the child has been approved and when they can start. Failure to follow this policy will delay the approval process. So delays in enrollment approvals. What can that look like? For our 2.0 users, if you entered the child incorrectly in Childware, that can delay an approval. If there's missing information in the child's profile, that too can delay an approval. For our 1.0 users, if you did not enter the child in Childware 1.0 and set the status as pending, that can delay enrollment approval. If the application email is incomplete or the email sent to PHMC is missing information, that can delay enrollment approvals. For our school district providers, if the application is emailed and it's incomplete, or the email sent to PHMC is missing information, that can delay enrollment approvals. The next portion is grade level tagging. We have 3 different grade level types. The first is pre-K in person, pre-K remote, 5 days, pre-K blended, in person and remote. For our 2.0 users, we have included a tip sheet to share how you can update the grade level type for this student. Are they in person 5 days a week, remote 5 days a week, or blended in person and remote? Again, you want to make sure you have your remote waiver completed and that you're within the guidelines, okay? For our 1.0 and school district providers, in the event that a grade level type needs to change, you want to inform us of the change. In that email, you want to share the child's name, the grade level type, and the dates of the change. For our 2.0 users, in Child 2.0, in the Child's General tab, you'll see a link that says Learn and Model. There you will select which grade type is appropriate for that child. Let's talk about discharging after enrolling. This was one of the questions. So for our 2.0 providers, if a provider is discharging a child in 2.0, you will follow the steps outlined below. To discharge a child, you will select the Enroll button from the PHLpreK application list view to see the details of the child's enrollment. From the enrollment detail, you'll click on the Discharge button. Enter the discharge date from the pop-up calendar. Choose the appropriate discharge date for your program and choose a reason for that discharge. A message will pop up to confirm discharge. Select Yes if everything is fine, and the child will display Now as discharged. The provider should review the dashboard and enroll children monthly to ensure that there are no discrepancies. A tip sheet can be found in the support portal. For our 1.0 users, if a provider is discharging in the 1.0 system, these are the steps you need to take. You want to email PHLpreK@phnc.org to inform us of the discharge. In the email correspondence, please add the child's name, the discharge date, and the discharge reason. If you discharge the child in 1.0, the team does not receive a notification, so you must send an email to inform us. For our 1.0 providers, you also receive a monthly email listing all children that are approved in the system. Take time to review and inform us of any discrepancies right away. For our school district providers, if a provider is discharging a child in COPA, these are the steps you need to take. You want to email us at phlpreK@phnc.org to inform us of the discharge. In the email correspondence, please add the child's name, discharge date, and discharge reason. For if you're discharging a child in COPA, the team does not receive a notification, so you must email us to inform us. You too receive a monthly email listing all children approved and discharged for that month. Please take time to review and inform us of any discrepancies right away. Let's review the discharge statuses again. Never attended. Children who were provided a start date and did not attend within 7 business days of that date per PHLpreK policy. Withdrew from program. Children whose families willingly withdrew from program. And as the question was asked, if they did attend, but then no longer attended, withdrew from program is appropriate. Completed program. Children who attended through the last day of PHLpreK programming. Switch funding source. Children who remained at your site but switched out of PHLpreK funding and into another funding source. For example, Head Start. Transfer within agency. Children who move from one site within your agency to a different site within your agency, but remain recipients of PHLpreK funding. Lastly is verification noncompliance. Children who did not meet the age requirement, the address requirement, or both for PHLpreK and therefore did not qualify for PHLpreK funding. If you encounter any problems when you are discharging, please reach out to the help desk at phnc.org. As shared for our 2.0 users, that pop-up will come in if everything looks good and you hit yes, and they say, that was the wrong date. Oh, that was the wrong status. Email the help desk and they can correct that error for you. So let's talk about the attendance policy per contract. You want to make sure your attendance policy identifies the time frames in which a child should begin in the program once enrollment is approved. Your policy should identify the process for families that they should use to notify the center if a child will be absent from the program. Your policy should identify clear procedures to deliver and document supports for chronic and consecutive absences prior to a child being withdrawn from a program. The policy should identify families' communication strategies and support resources to assist families when absences are due to hardships. It should share how families are contacted if a child is absent for a period of consecutive days defined by PHLpreK program. Documentation of the contact should be kept in a child's file and can be entered into ChildWare. It should share how a child who will be absent for 30 days or more may be disenrolled, but will be able to re-enroll upon return if a slot is available. And lastly, slots will be held for 30 days for children who haven't approved extended absence due to a long-term illness. Again, we try to work with families before discharging, and again, your policy should be shared with the families because that helps them to know what their options are. We're going to pause now for any questions. Johanna, are you able to support me with the questions? All right. Let me try to go to that screen. All right. A lot of questions have come in. I'll just make sure they're in the newsletter. So step 4, enrollment approval. Step 4, all providers must complete step 4 of the enrollment process, which varies by provider type. For our 2.0 user, the intermediary receives alerts that a child has been pre-enrolled in ChildWare. The intermediary will confirm that the child is not a duplicate, that enrollment data entry is complete, and that the site has a vacancy. The provider will then receive an automated alert with approval of enrollment within 48 hours. For our 1.0 users, the intermediary will confirm that the child is not a duplicate, that enrollment data entry is complete in 1.0 and 2.0. We'll do the 2.0, you have the 1.0, and that you have the vacancy. The provider will then receive an automated alert with approval of enrollment within 48 hours. The steps are the same for the school district providers. Confirm that it's not a duplicate. We shared that for our 2.0 users, they may have a duplicate because the child returned and they started a new file for that child. We try to keep the file the same for the child all the years of PHLpreK. But another way you can have a duplicate is if they're enrolled at a school district site and a 2.0 user site. So we want to make sure that we find out what site the family will be going to. Provided that you have that vacancy, the provider will then receive an automated alert with approval of enrollment within 48 hours. Enrollment confirmation must be received from PHLpreK before a child starts in the PHLpreK classroom. So what does each status mean? We have pre-enrolled. This is a child that has been pre-enrolled into the system and the start date is in the future. Please note the child must be approved by the intermediary. Enrolled. The child's start date enables the enrollment status, Please note again, the child must be approved by the intermediary. We have discharged. The child was discharged from the system for one of the discharge reasons previously listed. And applicant. The child that has been added as an applicant or a waitlist child in the system. When is a child approved to start? When all the steps of the enrollment process have been completed, all enrollment documents are in the child's file, and you have received an approval notification from the intermediary. The next few slides will share a sample of the following: the 48-hour approval timeline, the enrollment alert email, which is a new feature and it'll come directly from ChildWare, the weekly enrollment summary, and the monthly enrollment alert that the 1.0 and school district providers receive. The intermediary will make the final approval of enrollment in ChildWare and notify the provider within 48 hours of submission of the complete enrollment application. A provider must receive email notification of approval prior to allowing their child to start in their program. Lack of responsiveness may delay the approval time to request for information, and all enrollments will be approved in ChildWare 2.0 for all provider types. I do want to share for our 1.0 and school district users, sometimes if you send an application and something is missing, we do respond to that. Just want to make sure you respond back with the updated information so that we can move along for your enrollment for that child. So the 48-hour timeline, what does it look like? A child can be enrolled 48 hours from the receipt of application date or entry into the data system. Failure to comply with this guideline can delay enrollment. So if a child is entered into ChildWare 2.0 or an application is received from our 1.0 and school district users on a Monday, that child can start on Thursday. If it is received or submitted on Tuesday, that child can start Friday, and so forth and so on, as listed in this grid. This is a good way to share with the families and help you remember what days they can start depending on when the application was entered in ChildWare or when the application was submitted to the PHLpreK inbox. The PHLpreK slot approval notification. Friends, this is new. You will no longer, to our returning sites, you will no longer receive the confirmation email daily. You will receive this automated alert from Childware. Please, please, all users, new, returning, everybody on this call, please make sure that we have the most recent contact information for who from your site should receive enrollment alerts. We are making sure that everybody is in the system so that you'll get this alert once a child is approved. If you have any questions, again, you can always email us at phlpreK@phnc.org. All providers will receive this alert. The email will come from application admin, and the subject will say PHL Pre-K slot approval notification. It will list that Bob the Builder is approved and he can start on September 5th, 2022 for the FY22-23 school year. Again, you will receive this alert once a child has been approved. You can then let the family know within the hour set, which we'll review again, when they can begin. We also have a PHL Pre-K unapproval notification. In the event a child was approved in error, you will receive this alert and it'll say the child has been unapproved by PHL Pre-K. And if you have any questions with receiving this alert, again, email us at phlpreK@phnc.org. All providers will receive this alert weekly. This is the normal alert that you did receive daily as enrollments came in, but as we continue to grow, we're trying to make it a little easier for the team to be able to see all the children that were enrolled. So you'll get the daily alerts, but then once a week, you'll get this weekly enrollment confirmation. It will share all children that were enrolled since the last weekly enrollment confirmation that you received. Again, this alert will be sent on Fridays by close of business for all providers, and it will list all children that have been approved as of that Friday at 12 noon. Beginning at noon, we will begin compiling the emails to send them out to you so that you can know all the children that are approved to start at your program. Please, please, please be sure to review this alert when received to reduce any error. If somebody's missing, let's get them on the list and find out what happened, okay? For our 1.0 and school district providers, you will receive this alert monthly. It will share the children that have been approved for that month and the children that have been discharged for that month. Please, please, please be sure to review this alert when received to reduce error. If somebody is missing or if somebody should have been discharged, reach out to us at phlpreK@phnc.org so we can make sure everything goes smoothly for your invoicing. Again, all these pieces with enrollment, let us know if something is missing so that you can have a smooth enrollment and invoicing process. I'm going to now turn it back over to Johanna, who's going to share about step 5, notifying the family of approval.
Hi, Jennifer. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I think I was muted. I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself last time. Okay, so step 5, notify the family of approval. This is the final step you should take after receiving all of the confirmation emails that Jennifer just shared with you. All system users are responsible to notify the family that they are enrolled within 24 hours of receiving that email notification. The child's start date must reflect the pre-enrollment date that the child was approved for. Again, when should you inform the family that the child can begin? So once you receive that email confirmation, you must notify the family that the child is enrolled in PHL Pre-K within 24 hours. The child can begin in the program on the approved pre-enrollment date reflected in your child's alert email. The child's start date cannot precede the pre-enrollment date. The intermediary follows this process to ensure that all of the application data entry is complete and that slot analysis is reviewed. You want to ensure that you have the contracted slots available to enroll children. So again, let's review what should be in a child's file and uploaded to Childware. So for fiscal year 23, you should have the 22-23 PHL Pre-K family application. It should be completed to its entirety and signed before adding to the child's file and uploading to Childware. You should have the sources of evidence for the eligibility verification for age and residency and have those documents also in the child's file uploaded to Childware. The acknowledgement form, which covers screening, assessment, data sharing, and family engagement services, should be completed and in the child's file, uploaded to childware. There's an additional step for this. There's a small checkbox under the child's general tab in the system that we ask that you check off once that acknowledgement form is complete and uploaded. Additionally, you should be having the family complete an emerging contact form before enrollment for first day of programming. The CCW enrollment confirmation form for children receiving subsidy or families that are interested. If your child is not receiving subsidy or is not interested family, you do not need to fill out this form. Additionally, the parent fee agreement should also be a document that is shared with the family, completed, added to the child's file, and uploaded to childware. The provider services specialist will verify eligibility documentation and compliance of the enrollment process during their compliance monitoring checks. Payments will be held for incomplete files, so it's important that when you submit the child for approval, that you're uploading all of these documents in the child's file to ensure that they have been verified and ready to begin. Verifying documentation, childware 1.0 and 2.0. As shared, the provider services specialist will verify documents in childware. The documents that I just shared are also listed in this slide. Under providers will be requested to upload the documents, both 1.0 and 2.0 users. All application enrollment documents must be added to the child's record under the documentation tab, or if you're adding a note for specific notes, there is the ability to upload the document directly to that note. As a reminder, all documents should be uploaded as a PDF format. There are tip sheets available for how to upload documents for both our 1.0 and our 2.0 users, and the provider services team will access the documents for their assigned locations and complete their enrollment verification for the beginning of the school year. We're going to stop there for any questions. I will address the question, we've been getting questions around how do I know if I'm a 1.0 or 2.0 user? For our 1.0 users, these users utilize the database for all their children, not just for their PHLpreK children, so you would know if you're a 1.0 user. You would also know if you're a school district provider. If you are neither, then you would be considered our 2.0 user and using our 2.0 database. If you have questions about that, feel free to email us at phlpreK@phmc.org, and we're more than happy to confirm which user type you are. Additionally, we're getting questions around if the child qualifies for PHLpreK service. It's depending on the child's date of birth. So we covered if they were not 3 last year and did not attend a Head Start or Pre-K Counts classroom, then they would be eligible for PHLpreK seats. If they were 3 or 4 last year and were enrolled in any of the preschool services, then they would not be eligible for PHLpreK. If you have specific questions, because it could be a case-by-case basis, please email us at phlpreK@phmc.org. We're more than happy to review your question and walk you through if the child is eligible and qualifies.
Awesome. Thank you, Johanna. As shared, a lot of questions have come in. To be conscious of time and our time frame for today, again, we will work to get all questions answered and posted in the newsletter for you. So time to review. Enrollment policy for FY23. The waitlist policy. Providers that have fully enrolled their allocated slots must perform ongoing recruitment and maintain a waitlist comprised of applicants that have completed an FY23 enrollment application and been determined eligible. The provider waitlist will be sequenced in order of priority based on the time and date stamp of application completion as collected by the provider. The waitlist must be maintained in childware as well, per the procedures outlined by PHMC. The waitlist maintained in childware will be reviewed monthly by the intermediary and analyzed for compliance based on the eligibility requirements as defined by the contract. Providers are responsible for withdrawing an application from the system if the family is no longer interested in remaining on the waitlist, or if the child has aged out. All user types can refer to the waitlist policy specific to their user type. PHL pre-K providers are not permitted to deny enrollment or an opportunity to be placed on a waitlist to any family determined eligible for PHL pre-K funding. A child can only be on the waitlist if they are age eligible for the current program year and have completed all the application documents. Providers must have a written enrollment waitlist policy procedure and must provide this information to families at the time of application. So the FY23 waitlist applicants. For our 2.0 users, after you enter a child in childware, you will have the opportunity to apply them. You want to click on the child's name to open their record, and then click on the Application Enrollment tab. You will see a new application button. Click the button and choose the site and application date, the date on the PHL pre-K application. You'll click the Add button. The status of the child is now applicant. Any child that has an applicant status is considered on your waiting list. All documentation must be collected for the child and stored in the child's file. A tip sheet is available on the support portal. For our 1.0 users and our 2.0 users, you want to email the application to phlprek@phnc.org. In the email, you want to include the child's full name and their applicant status. Again, if sending more than one application at a time, please ensure you are sending them in the sequence and outlining that within the email. All documentation must be collected for the child and stored in the child's file. The site will meet this contract deliverable only if the site demonstrates an active waitlist in Childware 2.0. As chair, we oversee the intake and referral line. PHNC operates and manages the PHL pre-K enrollment and referral line. Our enrollment specialists conduct the following with interested families. They identify family preferences for childcare and make referrals to your locations for eligible families to enroll. Families can call 844-PHL-PRE-K, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So we talked about the 100% enrollment target. A key priority for PHL pre-K system is full utilization. Providers are asked to work towards full enrollment by September 30th, 2022, to maintain 100% enrollment and to begin building a waitlist. Each month, PHNC will conduct an analysis of approved enrollments, vacancies, and waitlists as reported in Childware to understand where enrollment recruitment supports are needed in the system. Sites that are not 100% enrolled and have seats that have been vacant for 30 days or more will be contacted and asked to work with Spark to develop a recruitment plan. PHL pre-K programs will receive support to identify families eligible for PHL pre-K and in need of regular programming and to identify new strategies for connecting with those families. This will require collaboration and creativity. Ongoing data collection and analysis of utilization and underutilization will be used by OCF to determine if and when reallocation of PHL pre-K seats based on demonstrated need and waitlists throughout the city might be necessary. I'm going to now share about Gratefully School. So the contract deliverable, the services that you conduct marketing and recruitment to ensure eligible families receive needed services. The deliverable is to update your Gratefully School's website to ensure accurate and current information about the site location, to be reviewed at minimum quarterly. Data to be updated includes the programs and classes that are offered, if you offer extended day, if you accept subsidy, if you offer meals. Share about the center's information, a phone number, a published email, a website, the student to teacher ratio, calls, the director's name, and hours of operation. All providers have access to Gratefully Schools to update their profile. You want to go to gratefullyschools.org and click School Login at the bottom footer. You can also see the school's user manual, frequently asked questions, quick links, support contact info, and key dates, all right? When updating your profile, you want to share general information, school photos, enrollment, open seats. For open seats, we alert Gratefully Schools weekly of how many seats each location has. A lot of families do go to this site. They share with us how many hits each location gets. So please, please, please make sure that your site is represented well in Gratefully Schools because the site is utilized. We ask that you allow 3 business days for review before publication once you submit your information to Gratefully Schools. And if you need any help, be sure to email them at info@gratefullyschools.org. There's also a tip sheet that can help you to make sure that your portal is updated. I'm going to pause for any questions. John, are there any questions we want to try to answer today before it goes in the newsletter?
So we've been answering questions directly in the chat panel. So please keep in mind that, we're answering those directly. I will say one question that's coming up is what supports are available for sites that have wait lists due to staffing? We had a lot of interest, but just couldn't obtain qualified staff. That's something that you can email us and we can connect you with Spark, who can support with some of those activities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, the other questions will be listed in the newsletter. I'm going to now turn it over to Mike Dunn, who's the Director of Communications, and he's going to share with us the PHLpreK Communications and Marketing. Mike?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. We'll get that right one of these days. Sorry about that. And hello, everybody. My name is Mike Dunn. As Jennifer said, I am the Communications Director for the Office of Children and Families. That includes the Early Childhood Education Office and, of course, the PHLpreK program. So we're going to step you through a hopefully fairly quick presentation to talk to you about the communications aspects of being a PHLpreK provider. And that presentation is really broken down into these 4 components. First, I'll talk to you about the comms team. Then we'll talk about some aspects related to how we brand PHLpreK. And then thirdly is really our desire that we hear from you with your success stories and find ways to promote those stories and your work. And finally, I'll talk about a toolkit of sorts, which is actually a Google shared drive that has a number of resources at your disposal that can help you promote your own work. Next slide. And as I said, the first part, we'll talk about the comms team. Next slide, please. So the Office of Children and Families Communications group is a small group of maybe about 6 or 7 people. In addition to PHLpreK, we handle communications for a number of areas, including the Department of Human Services, the Prevention Services Group, which includes out-of-school time activities, community schools, truancy, adult education, and a host of other programs. For PHLpreK, we help maintain the website that many of you, if not all of you, are probably familiar with. That is phlprek.org, which is really one-stop shopping for all information for families, for prospective families, and for providers. We also maintain a number of social media channels to promote what's going on with PHLpreK. And as you see there, the hashtag. And we really encourage you, if you are active on social media on behalf of your center, to tag things with hashtag PHLpreK in order to allow us to see what you're doing and to retweet it or repost it and help spread the word. We also put out a number of newsletters, one of which you probably already receive, and that is the PHLpreK monthly newsletter. This newsletter specifically is for providers like you, and we have tried in recent months to include in each issue an interview with a provider to put the spotlight on their success. The 4th bullet point you see there on that slide is media management, which includes running paid advertising campaigns on behalf of PHLpreK, primarily aimed at encouraging enrollment. And to that end, we will be launching a new campaign in the next couple of months to help boost enrollment in PHLpreK for the 22 to 23 school year. Another aspect of media management that we handle is press relations, and that involves both fielding questions for reporters who have decided on their own to look at PHL Pre-K, and also going proactively pitching stories to reporters in hopes that they'll want to cover it in a positive way. For example, tomorrow we have a press event at the Grays Ferry Early Learning Academy, which is having its move-up day and graduation tomorrow. The mayor is coming for that, and we're inviting the press. So you may see it on the TV news tomorrow evening, or in the paper. Hopefully we'll get some good coverage about that. And of course, we'll point out that many centers throughout the city, many PHL Pre-K centers are hosting move-up days. So could I have the next slide? So this is, as it says, where to follow or contact OCF, our main website. This is for all of the Office of Children and Families, is that first link, phila.gov/families. And then we maintain active social media channels. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/PHL Families. And then for both Twitter and Instagram, it's at PHL Families. So feel free to follow us and retweet or share our posts or tag us if you, as I said earlier, either with our handles or that hashtag if you want us to help promote what you have going on. And then finally, if you need to reach out to us, one general email contact is ocfcommunications@phila.gov. Next slide. One specific aspect of this, as I mentioned, sometimes reporters on their own decide that they're going to do a story related to PHL Pre-K, or it could simply be a story about early childhood education in general in Philadelphia, and sometimes focused on specific aspects of that, like staffing issues or security. So you may indeed find yourself that you're suddenly contacted by a reporter. So this slide really is what we strongly recommend the steps you take when you are contacted, if you are contacted. One is to reach out and let me know. And you can see there's my cell phone number. Feel free to call me, 215-570-3432. And I'm at mike.dunn@phila.gov, hopefully easy to remember. And at the same time, you should notify your contacts with PHMC if there is a media contact. And those steps are not to discourage you from speaking. That is your choice, but we are here to support you and to provide guidance. We have a lot of experience in dealing with the media. We know a lot of the reporters personally. So by looping us in on that outreach, particularly a request for an interview, we can help you decide whether you want to do it and how to do it, and so on. So could I have the next slide? The next topic, as I mentioned, is a very important thing for the PHL Pre-K program as a whole, and that is use of consistent branding. And there we go, thank you. This means a number of things, one of which is, as you may see, we refer to PHL Pre-K in that very specific way, which is PHL is capitalized, the word or the letters PRE are lowercase, and then K is capitalized. That is how we brand the program. And like with anything, branding is important because it increases the public's recognition. And because of that, consistency in branding is important, because if you are not consistent in how you refer to the program or to the product, whatever it may be, it can create confusion. So what you see there on the slide are examples of various ways we've used this branding. On the left, that's a clip from a recent PHL Pre-K newsletter. And you see the logo at the top of the newsletter. In the middle, you see a screenshot of coverage from CBS3 of an event. And as you can see, we hung up a large sign up for PHL Pre-K using the logo, which is the Liberty Bell and the letters. And Channel 3 shot that and included it in the TV package, which is great because it puts our program and our logo and our branding directly in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And then finally on the left, you see photos from various press events in which we bring signage. And so when there's photography or videography, that branding is clear throughout. Could I have the next slide? And as I said, consistency and use of this is key, and we really strongly urge you to be careful when you are using PHL Pre-K to use it spelled the way it is there on the left with the first 3 letters and the final letter capitalized, and that when you do need a logo, and we will be providing you access to a folder with the logos, that you use the logo that we provide. Don't alter it, don't. As you see in the examples on the right, colors have been changed, the image has been stretched, the letter font has been changed, the spelling has been changed. These are all don'ts. And I'm not saying anybody on the call has ever done any of this, but it really does harm the brand and create public confusion. So we appreciate your sticking with the consistent branding. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Next slide. This is some really great work, examples of flyers or signage that providers on their own put together for events or just to, generally promote their centers. And so you can see it's really, it's not that difficult. And it doesn't have to be super slick or super professional looking. We understand that time is limited and staff is limited. So, but there is a lot you can do with very little. Could I have the next slide? Pardon me, I just need to take a sip of water, 1 second. Thank you. And speaking of doing a lot with a little, this screenshot is the interface of a free online graphic design service called Canva. If you're looking for a quick and cheap way to put flyers or other graphical elements together, you can use Canva. We here in the Office of Children and Families use it at the paid level, the professional level, which has lots of bells and whistles, but the free level is very functional. And so you don't need to do anything, I think, for that other than give them your email address, and then you can opt out of their, emails where they promote their work, but you can still use it. So Canva, we strongly recommend as a great online way to do some design. And the example that you see there includes the PHL Pre-K logo. So this is an example of how a provider could take the logo, integrate it into a flyer for an event, and then create a PDF file that they could print out. Next slide. So the third part of the presentation is really the most uplifting, and that is we want to help you promote your successes, and to do that, we need to hear from you. So we want you to tell us what makes you proud. And you could drop examples in the chat right now, and we'll be happy to see them, or you can reach out to you can reach out to us by email or reach out to PHMC. On the center and right side of this slide, you see examples of blogs that we posted on the Office of Children and Families webpage, highlighting 2 PHL Pre-K providers. And we try to do these every month. So what we do is we take the provider spotlight that's included in the PHL Pre-K newsletter that you receive, and we repurpose that interview into a blog that everyone in the public can see. So the newsletter is really for a small group of providers and others, but the blog obviously is available to anybody. And what we do is after we post the blog, we then tweet about it and post about it on Facebook and Instagram with a link back to the blog. So this is one really easy and inexpensive way of promoting your work and your stories. Next slide. So we do want to hear from you, as I said. If you have a story that you feel you want to tell about, it doesn't have to be a specific moment or instance or day. It could be just generally how things are going during the year. It can be one particular staffer who's going above and beyond, or maybe one of your families, really anything. And if you're unsure whether it warrants promotion, just bounce it off us. So as you see there's ways you can reach out. You can tell your PHMC intermediary. You could tell the Denise Bermudez and Brittany, who you heard from. You can tell the PHLpreK team directly. You could tweet about it or post about it. And as I said, use that hashtag and then we'll see it. Or you could send the idea to phlprek@phmc.org. Next slide. And the final section is about a toolkit, as I referenced earlier, that is going to be made available to you. It is a shared folder on Google that all providers will have access to, that have a number of really great resources. It'll include a folder, as you may be able to see there, it's kind of small, under the headline there, PHLpreK logos. So if you ever need to include a logo in any printed form, a newsletter for your parents or a flyer or anything, go into this folder and pull out one of those. Don't try to create the logo on your own. And again, we're talking about the logo for the program. Obviously, you may have your own logo for your individual center. There's another folder in there of social media graphics, as well as photos that we gather together from various events at pre-K centers. All of those photos are for you to use. Next slide. One of the elements in this toolkit is a written guide that really has some good pointers about how you can market your center, how you can do outreach, and I really urge you to take a look at that when you can and let us know if you have any questions. Next slide. And again, as I referenced, this logo folder, the one written item in that folder is a page of guidance, all of which I have already spelled out in the presentation, but it reiterates those key concepts about consistency and branding. Next slide. There's also a document in this folder that kind of breaks down, as you see here, examples of good and some bad social media posts and how to promote both your program and PHLpreK as a whole. So that's a lot of guidance. Some of you who are very active on social media probably know all this. Those of you who aren't and want to kind of dip your toe into those waters, this guidance should be of help. Next slide. There's also a list of local neighborhood newspapers and websites. Most of these are print publications that accept advertising for various neighborhoods. So if your center is in a specific neighborhood and you were thinking of, if you're concerned about your enrollment levels and you want to get the word out about your specific center, these neighborhood newspapers are usually a fairly cost-effective way of doing advertising. And very often the newspapers themselves will create the ad for you. They will ask you for the content, obviously. They will ask you for logos that you want in the ad, but then they could actually formulate that into a designed ad that they would send to you for approval and then run in the paper. So those are options too, and that advertising information will be in the folder. The other tab on this spreadsheet that's linked in there is a list of radio stations. Radio advertising tends to be more expensive, but for some of the smaller stations, it could be a very good bang for your buck because they have huge reach. Next slide. And as I mentioned, one of the subfolders in this toolkit are social media graphics. What you see there are examples from a previous enrollment campaign that we did, I think about a year ago. As you see, it says there 5 years, 10,000 students. We're now at 6 years and 13,000 students. So our advertising and our graphics are being updated. But what we do is we take the designed ads and reformat them for easy use on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all of which have, you know, very specific and different formatting requirements. Next slide. And as I mentioned, there's a pretty big folder in there with lots of great photos from a number of different events. These are all from PHLpreK centers. So obviously, if you have your own photos, that's great to use. And I believe part of the standard process for families coming in each year is to sign a photo release. Please make sure you have photo releases if you're using those of your own students. But in addition to that, you have this resource of this folder full of photos. Next slide. And I think this is the last item in this folder, and that is if you are hoping to do an event that you would love to have either the mayor or Deputy Mayor Vanessa Garrett Harley or Denise or Brittany or Sean Perkins, our head of early childhood education, if you want any city officials to be there for your event, please email ocfcommunications@phila.gov with all of this information. And again, this document spelling all this out will be in the toolkit, so you don't have to write it all down now. Next slide. So again, that's really the kind of quick overview of what's in this toolkit. It, as I said, is a tremendous resource for all of your providers. We know that you don't have marketing budgets or you know, much in terms of marketing budgets, but there are either free through social media or inexpensive through neighborhood newspapers. There are ways of getting the story out, and we are here to support you and help you in that effort. Next slide. That's just a quick recap of the areas that we covered. Please let me know either in chat or by email if you have any questions on these. And I think that's it. Is there another slide? Yep, there you go. You could email any questions to ocfcommunications@phila.gov. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you.
Were there any questions, Johanna?
No questions for Mike.
Awesome, awesome. I do want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. As shared, you want to attend enrollment training and sign and return your NOA. If you have done those things as a returning site, then you are good to go. If you are a new site, you want to make sure that you attend the agency setup training. We have one this afternoon and one tomorrow. So be sure to attend that, and that is what secures you in getting your enrollment documents. We thank you so much for attending today. We thank you for your patience as we work to get you the enrolling documents so that you can start the enrollment process for FY23. And we thank you for partnering with PHLpreK this year. Hope you have a great day. We're all dismissed.